The region now known as Israel and the Palestinian territories sits at the crossroads of history, a land where ancient civilizations have risen and fallen. For millennia, Jews, Christians and Muslims have considered this land holy, each faith weaving its own sacred narratives into the fabric of the region. Jerusalem in particular holds immense religious significance for all three faiths, serving as a spiritual epicenter and a symbol of divine promise. This shared history, however, is also a source of deep-seated conflict, with each group laying claim to the city and its holy sites. Control over this land has changed hands numerous times throughout history, from ancient empires to modern states. Each empire, each ruler left their mark, further complicating the question of ownership and heritage. For Jews, this land is their biblical birthright, the ancient land of Israel, promised to them in their sacred texts. After centuries of exile, the Zionist movement emerged in the late 19th century, advocating for a Jewish state in their ancestral homeland, a dream that many sought to make a reality. For Palestinians, this land has been their home for generations, a place where their ancestors lived, worked, and built their communities. They identify as the indigenous population with deep roots in the region, their culture and history intertwined with the land. These competing claims to the same land lie at the heart of the conflict, a struggle that continues to shape the lives of millions. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Jewish immigration to Palestine increased significantly, fueled by relentless persecution in Europe and the Zionist dream of establishing a homeland. This movement was driven by a deep-seated desire for safety and self-determination. This influx, however, led to growing tensions with the Arab population, who felt their land and way of life were under threat. The arrival of Jewish settlers disrupted the existing social and economic fabric of Palestinian society. The British, who controlled Palestine after World War I, struggled to balance the conflicting demands of these two groups. Their attempts at mediation often fell short, leading to further dissatisfaction and unrest. The 1930s witnessed escalating violence between Jews and Arabs, with both communities increasingly resorting to armed conflict. Both sides committed atrocities, and the British seemed increasingly incapable of maintaining order. The Mandate authorities were overwhelmed by the scale of the conflict. The Holocaust, which exposed the horrors of anti-Semitism, further strengthened the resolve of the Zionist movement to establish a Jewish state. The plight of Holocaust survivors added urgency to their cause. By the end of World War II, the stage was set for a bitter struggle over Palestine. The British withdrawal and the United Nations partition plan only intensified the conflict, setting the scene for the turbulent years ahead. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem as an international zone. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, but the Arab world rejected it, viewing it as an unfair division of their land. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion declared the establishment of the State of Israel. The declaration triggered an immediate war between Israel and the surrounding Arab states. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War, known to Israelis as the War of Independence and to Palestinians as the Nakba, resulted in a decisive Israeli victory. In the aftermath, over 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes, becoming refugees in neighboring countries. The 1948 war did not resolve the conflict, but rather entrenched it. The following decades saw a series of wars and uprisings. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel captured the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. This victory expanded Israel's territory, but also deepened the Palestinian sense of dispossession. The occupation of Palestinian territories fueled resistance movements, including the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO. The PLO, led by Yasser Arafat, employed both political and armed struggle against Israel. The conflict took on a new dimension, evolving into a struggle for self-determination and an end to occupation. After years of bloodshed, the 1990s brought a glimmer of hope with the Oslo Accords. Signed in 1993 and 1995, these agreements aimed to establish a framework for peace based on a two-state solution. The PLO recognized Israel's right to exist, and Israel recognized the PLO as the representative of the Palestinian people. The Oslo Accords led to the creation of the Palestinian Authority, which was granted limited self-governance in parts of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The Accords, however, failed to address key issues like the status of Jerusalem, Israeli settlements, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Section 6. Failed Peace, the Second Intifada and Beyond. The hope generated by the Oslo Accords proved short-lived. Continued Israeli settlement expansion in the West Bank, the failure to reach a final peace agreement, and the assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, a key architect of the peace process, all contributed to a renewed cycle of violence. The Second Intifada, which erupted in 2000, was characterized by Palestinian suicide bombings and Israeli military operations. The violence shattered the fragile peace and hardened positions on both sides. Israel built a separation barrier in the West Bank, which it argued was necessary for security, but which Palestinians viewed as a land grab. Section 7. Leaders and legacies shaping the narrative. Throughout the conflict, leaders on both sides have played crucial roles in shaping the narrative and influencing the course of events. Their decisions, speeches, and actions have had profound impacts on their respective communities and the world at large. David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, played a pivotal role in the founding of the state and its early military victories. His vision and leadership were instrumental in establishing Israel's identity and securing its initial survival. Golda Meir, Israel's first female prime minister, led the country during the Yom Kippur War. Her tenure was marked by both significant challenges and critical decisions that shaped Israel's future. On the Palestinian side, Yasser Arafat, the charismatic leader of the PLO, became a symbol of Palestinian resistance. His leadership galvanized the Palestinian cause and brought international attention to their struggle. His successor, Mahmoud Abbas, has pursued a more conciliatory approach, but has also been criticized for his leadership. Abbas's efforts towards peace have been met with both support and opposition, reflecting the complexities of the conflict. These leaders, each with their own visions and legacies, have left an indelible mark on the conflict. Their actions and decisions continue to influence the path towards peace and the ongoing struggle for resolution. Section 8. Life in the Shadow of Conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not just a matter of history or politics, it is a daily reality for millions of people. Israelis live with the constant threat of terrorism, while Palestinians endure the hardships of occupation, including checkpoints, movement restrictions, and the expansion of Israeli settlements. The conflict has also taken a heavy toll on both societies. Countless lives have been lost, and generations have grown up in the shadow of violence and mistrust. The conflict has seeped into every aspect of life, from education and healthcare to the economy and culture. Section 9. A future uncertain, the path forward. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains one of the most intractable conflicts in the world. Despite numerous attempts at peace, a lasting solution seems elusive. The two-state solution, once seen as the most viable option, appears increasingly distant as Israeli settlements expand in the West Bank. The future remains uncertain, but dialogue, compromise, and empathy are essential for any hope of peace. Both sides must acknowledge the other's suffering and aspirations. Ultimately, a just and lasting solution must address the core issues of the conflict, including security, borders, Jerusalem, settlements, and refugees.